Hello YouTube. The symbol of modern medicine is a snake that secretes a drop of poison into a bowl. It came to us from very ancient times. In many societies, the snake personified wisdom, and its poison is medicine, a large dose of which can kill a person and a small one can cure. The successes of modern medicine are well known. The victorious thread of modern medicine somehow unwittingly obscured its history, its deep traditional roots. Traditional European medicine displaces other hygienic and therapeutic systems from all continents such as Tibetan, African, Chinese, Indian, and so forth. And it would be necessary to take a closer look at the achievements of medicine of ancient eras and ancient people. Perhaps this would help us overcome numerous obstacles to the progress of modern medicine. From time to time, our medicine basically rediscovers therapeutic methods that were known thousands of years ago. For example, massage, breathing exercises, mokshi bastion, acupuncture, auto-training, etc., which were successfully used hundreds of thousands of years ago. Mokshi bastion is a traditional Chinese medicine therapy, which consists of burning dried mugwort on particular points on the body. It plays an important role in the traditional medical systems of China, Japan, Korea, Vietnam, and Mongolia. Suppliers usually age the mugwort and grind it up to a fluff. Practitioners burn the fluff or process it further into cigar-shaped stick. They can use it indirectly with acupuncture needles or burn it on the patient's skin. Mugwort, Artemisia vulgaris, is a flowering plant native to Northern Europe, Asia, and parts of North America. The sage-colored plant is commonly used for beer making, but is also thought to prevent or treat health conditions like anxiety, digestion problems, and irregular periods, among others. And this was just an example I wanted to give you. During one of the archaeological expeditions in the Valley of the Kings in Egypt, several mummies whose age reached 4,500 years were taken out of an ancient burial. Scientists were amazed. In the jaws of some of them shone artificial gold teeth, surprisingly similar to the products of modern dentists. Well, no one even suspected about the high skill of dentists of ancient Egypt. Like the ancient Maya the ancient Maya were not only able to make artificial teeth crowns, but also put fillings. The composition of dental cement, which was then used, is unknown to us. Nevertheless, it was undoubtedly of very high quality, since the fillings have survived to our time. On the skeletons of ancient people, archaeologists often see traces of complex surgical operations, amputation of limbs, fusion of fractures, and even trepanation of the skull. The oldest neurosurgical operation known to science was skull trepanation, and a successful one, since, as studies have shown, the patient recovered and the wound healed. It was done about 12,000 years ago. Modern neurosurgeons pay attention to the high quality of trepanations performed, the purity of incisions, etc., and yet, as we believe, only flint scrapers could have been a single tool for ancient surgeons. In the south of Ukraine and in the Rostov region, 4 to 4,500 years ago, tribes of the so-called catacomb culture lived. These people, they would hide the dead in graves with a special side niche, like a catacomb. While the paleontologist Kruts found that many skulls have clear traces of surgical operations. An even more surprising discovery was made in Paracas, in Peru. It turned out that instead of missing parts, of the natural frontal bone, gold plates were inserted there. People who had such an operation lived for quite a long time, as the plates were overgrown with new bone. Here we're not talking about minor surgical interventions. Skulls were found in Paracas, which indicate that the frontal bone was completely replaced. Modern surgery cannot do such operations. By the way, in the history of European medicine, the first attempt at the skull trepanation was made in Paris in 1876, and it ended unsuccessfully. The patient died immediately after the operation. Since ancient times, the custom of deforming the head, which is completely incomprehensible to us today, has been preserved, and I've talked about it in some of my other videos. Archaeologists have found deformed human skulls on all continents. The greatest spread of this practice was acquired in ancient Peru. The Peruvian scientist explains this riddle as follows. This custom was widespread in ancient Peru in the pre-ceramic era, 3200 to 2800 before Common Era, very significant period, by the way. It persisted for a long time after the colonization of the country by the Spaniards in the 16th century, despite all the prohibitions of the Inquisition. This scientist believes that the Incas borrowed the custom and methods of skull deformation from the local tribes under their control. The Incas, who were ruling elite, deformed their heads in order to differ from their subordinates. The deformation of the skull was done with the help of special pads in childhood when the bones were elastic. Most often they tried to achieve that the head became elongated like a melon or a cucumber. While the scientist is convinced that this often led to mental illness, especially among the representatives of the priest caste, who use the most severe deformities of the head. There is no convincing explanation yet why this custom has persisted for so many centuries. It can be assumed that the deformation, as well as special trepanations, was done in order to influence the human psyche. Archaeology testifies to the high level of development of surgery in many other societies of the past. Among 50 bronze surgical instruments preserved in the Museum of the History of Medicine in Kiev, Ukraine, they were found during the excavations of the ancient Greek colony city of Olbia, 7th century before Common Era, 4th century of Common Era. Among them are needles, tweezers, probes, spoons, hooks, etc. Some of these instruments in their shape and purpose, they're almost a copy of modern ones. Studies have shown that the ancient doctors of Olbia performed such operations as suturing and ligatures, removing foreign objects from wounds and stones from the urinary tract, and so forth. The ancient Indian in India, author Sashruta, who lived in the 5th century before Common Era, described 121 surgical instruments and diagnosis of 1,120 diseases. He carried out quite successful attempts at plastic surgery, performed cesarean section and other complex operations. And the Chinese surgeon Hua To performed operations using anesthesia even 19th centuries ago. Now about the Egypt. Well, Egyptian doctors used painkillers during operations as early as the 16th century before Common Era. In one of the papyri of the time of Pharaoh Imhotep, the end of the 15th century before Common Era, there is information that opium was used for this purpose. Egyptian doctors had an idea about the work of the heart and arteries, were able to determine the pulse. A famous ancient Egyptian architect, Imhotep, and I think he was much more than that, who lived 4,800 years ago, is also considered the first doctor registered in history. The Egyptian priests, having carefully looked into the eyes of the patient, could determine by the iris which organ was hurting him or her. That is, they possessed the method of iridodiagnostics, which our medicine have discovered again only recently. The medicine of the ancient Egyptians achieved outstanding success in the treatment of diseases of the respiratory tract, digestive tract, head, trachoma, and cataracts. They knew about the connection between the nervous system and the musculature, established the cause of paralysis. The Smith Papyrus describes 49 clinical cases of this disease. In general, ancient Egyptian medicine was more developed than medieval European medicine. Interestingly, doctors in ancient Egypt were already firmly convinced of the existence of a connection between the psyche and the human brain. And meanwhile, in medieval Europe, the psyche was associated with the heart. That's why the words soft-hearted, hard-hearted, heartless originate from those times. The glorious ancient physicians, the parents of modern medicine, Hippocrates and Galen, did not hide the fact that they received part of their knowledge from the scientific works that were preserved in the temple of Imhotep in Memphis. The ancient Egyptians widely used various cosmetics, perfumes, aromatic oils, etc. In the hot, dry climate of the Nile Valley, the use of toilet oils and perfumes was very necessary. The oil protected the skin from excessive drying, and the perfume evaporating refreshed it. The poor used ordinary castor oil for this purpose, and the nobility used oils for which perfumers gave exquisite aromas by soaking the petals of fragrant flowers in olive or almond oil. The process of obtaining such aromatic oils is depicted on the walls of many tombs of ancient Egypt. Chemical analysis of perfumes and oils show that they included various resins, beeswax, oil of bitter almonds and unripe olives, cardamom, myrrh, and other plants and animal components. Cosmetics in general were extremely popular in ancient Egypt. Women actually painted their lips. The most fashionable lipstick colors were black and green, blushed their cheeks, covered their nails with paint, and made up their eyes. The custom of eyeliner was associated not so much with the efforts of the Egyptians to decorate themselves as with the need to protect the eyelid from the scorching rays of the tropical sun. The eyelid paint was prepared from lead carbonate, manganese oxide, brown ochre, and malachite. Chinese and Tibetan doctors already in ancient times received information about the condition of all his or her organs by the pulse of a person. They were also able to diagnose even by the smell of human sweat. It is known how important X-ray analysis is for modern diagnostics in medicine. Its development is connected with the discovery in 1895 of the invisible rays, eventually called X-rays. Nowadays, without an X-ray machine, in most cases it is simply impossible to get correct idea of the functioning of many internal organs of the patient. And probably few people know that the court physicians of the Chinese Emperor Qin Shi Huang, 259 to 210 before Common Era, had a magic mirror that allowed them to see the bones of the body. According to ancient Chinese chronicles, it was located in the Hanyang Palace in Shanxi back in 206 BC, before Common Era. If a person stood in front of this rectangular mirror, which measured 1.76 by 1.22 meters, then an inverted image came out and all internal organs and bones were visible exactly as on the screens of our fluorographs. The structure and principle of operation of the mirror is unknown to us, but it was used for the same purpose as our X-ray machines to establish a diagnosis. Did the emperor really own something like a fluorograph? Who invented it and when. The discovery of the vaccination method in 1798 belongs to the Englishman Jenner. However, it seems that the ancient Indians were the first, after all. The ancient Indian from India medical book Sankhya Grantham, which was written around the 1st century Common Era, contains the following text: instructions on vaccination against smallpox. With the tip of the knife on which there is inflammation, scratch the person's hand, mixing the inflammation with his blood. There will be a fever. However, this disorder will easily pass without complications. European medicine turned to blood transfusions only in the 20th century, and the Australian Aborigines used this method thousands of years ago. It resembles our so-called direct transfusion method. Blood from the donor was taken from the vein of the middle part of the arm using a hollow reed tube. It is not known exactly how the donor was selected. However, they almost never made mistakes. According to the Australian media, the Aborigines almost do not collect medicinal plants and do not use ancient methods of treatment. They're being replaced by modern ones. In the end, doctors of not only such powerful civilizations as the Egyptian or Chinese have achieved no less outstanding success. The Soviet doctor Lyapunova studied methods of traditional medicine of the Aleuts, small people who live on the Aleutian Commander and some other islands in the northeastern Pacific Ocean. The Aleuts lived in isolation from the outside world for a long time. Nevertheless, in the reports of scientists and travelers who had visited those parts, you can find descriptions of the methods of treatments used by Aleutian healers: acupuncture, bloodletting, massage, diet, herbs, roots, and so forth. There is no doubt that the solution to the medical secrets of this small in size of population people lies in the ancient traditions that have reached them from distant ancestors. For example, the Aleuts have preserved the custom of anatomizing the bodies of killed enemies and their tribesmen who died for an unknown reason, mummifying them, etc. For many centuries, the Catholic Church has strictly persecuted European scientists for trying to do anatomical research. This ban delayed the development of European medicine for a long time. Well, American scientists have compiled a large dictionary of anatomical terms of the Aleuts, where, as in the modern European textbook Anatomy, there are names of all external and internal organs of a person, almost all of his bones and muscles. The Aleuts came close to discovering the human circulatory system and the importance of air in his life. Knowing the anatomy well, the doctors have widely used massage of internal organs, and modern European medicine is just coming to this method. Wounds were sewn up with bone needles and threads from veins. During difficult operations, the patient was kept in a warm bath, and wounds, ulcers, and surgical sutures were healed with fish oil, sea and land animal fat, burnt and powdered animal tooth, etc. In case of injuries and many diseases, they were attributed to starvation treatment. In one word, the Aleuts, who developed their medical art isolated from modern civilization, to a certain extent turned out to be worthy competitors of modern doctors. The richest, almost undeveloped virgin land for modern medicine is made up of ancient pharmacological remedies. The origin of our miraculous antibiotics, such as, for example, penicillin, aromycin, etc., should be sought in ancient Egypt. In the medical papyrus of the 11th dynasty, we're talking about different types of moldy fungi that grow in most places. They're recommended for healing wounds and open ulcers. The ancient Greeks knew about the antibiotic properties of warm earth, and the Chinese knew about the properties of the soy cheese. Recently, the media around the world reported that scientists at Columbia University, USA, found traces of the antibiotic tetracycline in the bones of Nubian mummies whose age exceeds 1,000 years. The mummies were found in the desert near the Nile Valley in Egypt. They are well preserved due to the dry and hot climate. This discovery caused controversy in scientific circles since it was previously believed that tetracycline could be obtained exclusively in modern laboratories. Scientists discovered this antibiotic only a few decades ago, and now it is widely used by modern medicine. And suddenly, a 1,000-year-old tetracycline. It was suggested that the ancient tetracycline is a product of the vital activity of special bacteria in local soils. From there, it got into, let's say, grain and then into the human body. But it is possible that the doctors of that time paid attention to the miraculous healing properties of such grain and began purposely treating people with it. Doctors of Assyria and Babylon recommended apples, pears, dates, onions, garlic, beets, vegetable oils, sour and fresh milk, honey, brewer's yeast to their patients for the treatment of certain diseases. And if I am not mistaken, in the Talmud, it also talks about the miraculous, wonderful properties of beets for human health. And this is absolutely true from the point of view of modern medicine. All these natural products have medicinal properties. Even 150 to 200 years ago, the inhabitants of Russia would have been surprised by today's menu. For example, such common dishes for the modern Russians as cabbage, beet juice, etc., in the 17th century in Russia were used exclusively as medicine. The Leicester Institute in Shanghai, founded by the British in the 1930s, studied ancient Chinese medicines. According to the Dr. Bernard Rudd, many of them, even such strange ones as monkey skin, dog brain, sheep eyes, contain chemicals that cause therapeutic effect. According to the teachings of Tibetan medicine, everything that exists in the world can heal: water, air, resin, herbs, meat, and milk of animals, flowers, etc. You just need to be able to take them from nature and apply them correctly. In the book Jud Shi, the main treatise of Tibetan medicine, it is said, a doctor must have a special way of thinking, strong and deep intuition, have sharp vision, smell, and hearing. And further, there are no miracles in Oriental medicine. Everything is based only on knowledge. As established by Soviet botanists and doctors, today 974 species of plants are known in the Far East that have certain medicinal properties. Nevertheless, only 70 of them are used in pharmacology, while Russian folk medicine used 506 plants from this list. Chinese use 470, Tibetan 350, and healers of the Siberian tribes 171, and the Native Americans 83. Ancient herbalists also discovered the biorhythms of nature. Evidence of this is that they collected medicinal plants only in the strictly defined seasons and even parts of the day, when the healing activity of plant juices is highest. In the folklore of many peoples, there is an image of an old witch woman who collects reserved herbs and roots on a dark night with a full moon. Even now, beekeepers especially appreciate primrose May honey. Siberian hunters know about the therapeutic effect of the bear fed by which is accumulated by the bees before a long winter hibernation. Old herbalists collect some medicinal plants only in the morning when they are covered with dew, and others at noon, and others only at night. Priceless treasures are stored in the funds of the largest book depositories in Asia, the State Public Library of Mongolia, treatises on medicine in Tibetan, Old Mongolian, Chinese, and Sanskrit. Among them are manuscripts written on parchment, palm leaf, gold and silver plates, and silk fabrics. The letters are printed in ink, gold, silver, bronze powder. Well, decades ago, Soviet and Mongolian scientists were trying to decipher ancient recipes, check the effect of the described means. This work is extremely difficult. After all, most of the names are unknown to us. It is difficult to say, for example, which medicinal plant is hidden under the name, let's say, of dragon's eye. Nevertheless, certain successes had been achieved. Scientists of the Burat branch of the USSR Academy of Sciences long ago established, they published several collections with the deciphered ancient recipes translated in the modern scientific language. Who knows where the research is today? Hopefully it continues. The treasures of folk medicine of different countries included such remedies that modern medicine does not yet possess. Thus, according to the testimony of the American doctor and writer G. Wright, whose book Witness of Witchcraft was published in Russian in 1971, the medicine men of the Indian tribes of Peru, descendants of the ancient Incas, were able to treat leprosy, while the medicine that modern medicines today can only slow down its development. A patient who was dying of malaria was injected with an infusion of quinine into a vein with a wooden needle and put on his feet in a few weeks. Healers from the Peruvian Andes used curare, extracted from the juice of a certain type of palm tree, and successfully treated the bites of poisonous snakes with it. One of the most mysterious ancient method of treatment is acupuncture. It was discovered in European medicine by the French doctor Vreneau, who encountered acupuncture in China at the beginning of the 20th century. And although acupuncture has gained significant popularity today and has proven itself very well, the mechanism of action of this method is still not fully understood. According to legends, acupuncture arose due to random observations, and only later, over thousands of years, it was improved empirically. Nevertheless, a deep acquaintance with acupuncture shows that everything was not so simple. As you know, an acupuncture specialist in the treatment of certain diseases introduces special gold, silver, or steel needles to certain points on the patient's body. For the most part, there is no obvious connection between the place where the needle is inserted, or several needles at once, and the place where it hurts. So, for example, to treat ulcers on the head, a needle is inserted into the toe. There are about 1,000 such biologically active points on the human body. In ancient acupuncture reference books, you can find description of exactly where the needle should be inserted, how many needles to use at the same time, which ones, gold, silver, steel, and so forth, and to what depth, for how long each needle should remain in the body, depending on the specific disease and so forth. The question is, was it possible by a simple search empirically to find all these points on the body, establish their connection with certain organs, and by trial and error open acupuncture in this way? Let those of you who admire mathematics try to calculate how many different combinations had to be checked for this, not forgetting that in many cases 10, 15, or even 20 needles are injected in the same number of points at the same time, and that a single recovery of the patient could not yet be irrefutable proof of the effectiveness of treatment. In addition, even now doctors cannot convincingly explain what exactly the therapeutic effect of different needles is. In addition to the empirical one, there are two more hypotheses about the emergence of the acupuncture method. According to the first, the ancients supposedly believed that there was another nervous system in the human body, and knowledge of its main nodes indicated exactly where the needles should be inserted. There is that, meaning there was no empiricism at all, and this is based on details of ancient Chinese chronicles. They were studied by tremendously knowledgeable Soviet philologist, sinologist Lisevich about the son of heaven, Huan Di, who supposedly flew to Earth from the constellation Leo in the 3rd millennium before Common Era, and together with other knowledge, passed on the art of acupuncture to people. Look at my playlist about ancient China and ancient aliens. I think you'll find out more about Lisevich ideas and generally about China. So from all that we have discussed today, we can conclude that one of the most promising ways of developing modern medicine is a diligent research, preservation, and careful study of the invaluable experience that mankind has received over the previous millennia of its history and prehistory. And exploring the problem of cultural interrelations, we can come to the denial of the idea of the isolation of the centers of ancient civilization. And this was one of the objectives of Lisevich's research. He analyzed the Chinese traditional model of the world, its elements, Tao, Te, Qi, Wu Xing, and their role in the formation of literary thought in China. Translated and researched the main Taoist canon, the Book of the Way and Grace, Tao Te Ching, noting its mystical, meditative aspect, parallels with a number of other esoteric teachings. He participated in the development of the hypothesis of cosmic paleocontact, or ancient aliens theory. He was present at a number of international conferences on the problem of search of extraterrestrial intelligence and spoke about the danger of contact with a hypothetical extraterrestrial intelligence. Igor Samoilovich Lisevich passed away in Moscow in the year 2000. He was a Soviet and Russian Orientalist and sinologist, and he was from Belarus, by the way, and Doctor of Philological Sciences, and he had a tremendous impact on those who studied China in the former Soviet Union and even modern Russia. So that's what I wanted to let you know today, and I'll bring you more interesting stories about antiquity, the paleocontact hypothesis, and similar. And if you like my research, please support me through the links you'll find in the description to this video. Please like my videos, please tell others. Thank you.